For over 30 years, it was one of the biggest mysteries in music. Eric B. Rakim were on top of the world. They were the perfect duo who changed hip-hop forever. And then, suddenly, they were gone. No explanation, no goodbye, just silence. Now, the wait is over. The God MC, Rakim himself, is finally breaking his silence and telling the world the real reason why it all fell apart. To understand why Rakim's words about Eric B. matter so much, we need to go back to where it all began. In 1986, two young men from Long Island, New York came together to make music that would change hip-hop forever. Rakim, just 18 years old, was a quiet kid with a gift for words. He loved writing rhymes that were deep and clever, like poetry set to a beat. Eric B., a bold DJ with big dreams, was all about creating sounds that hit hard, using samples from old funk and soul records. Their paths crossed through a promoter named Alvin Toney, who saw something special in both of them. At first, Rakim wasn't sure about Eric B's ideas, like the bass line for their first hit, "Eric B is president." But once they started working together, it was clear they were a perfect match. That spark led to their first album, Paid in Full, in 1987. The album was a game changer. Songs like I Know You Got Soul and Paid in Full didn't just get people dancing, they showed the world what hip-hop could be. Rakim's rhymes were unlike anything anyone had heard before. He used complex patterns and big ideas, talking about life, knowledge, and his skills as an MC. Eric B's beats, built from samples of artists like James Brown and Bobby Bird, gave the music a raw, powerful energy. The album wasn't just a hit, it became a blueprint for hip-hop, inspiring artists like Nas, Wu-Tang Clan, and even modern rappers today. Fans and critics called it one of the greatest albums ever, and it put Eric B. Rakim on the map as the best DJ-MC duo of their time. Their success didn't stop there. Over the next few years, they dropped 3 more albums: Follow the Leader in 1988, Let the Rhythm Hit Him in 1990, and Don't Sweat the Technique in 1992. Each one pushed hip-hop forward. Follow the Leader had tracks like Microphone Fiend, where Rakim showed off his smooth flow and deep thoughts. Let the Rhythm Hit Him brought even more polished beats and rhymes, proving they could keep growing. By the time Don't Sweat the Technique came out, with songs like Know the Ledge, they were at the top of their game. Their music wasn't just about partying, it was about storytelling, wisdom, and pride in Black culture. They earned respect from everyone, from street DJs to music critics, who compared Rakim's rhymes to jazz legend Thelonious Monk. In 1992, they released their 4th album, and its title felt like a perfect statement of their status. Don't Sweat the Technique. The name itself was a message of pure confidence. It basically meant, we are masters at what we do, and we make it look easy. For fans, it was another brilliant display of their unique chemistry. The beats from Eric B. were as sharp as ever, and Rakim's rhymes were still miles ahead of everyone else. The album was a success, and it felt like just another chapter in the story of the best duo in hip-hop. It seemed like they were set to continue their reign for years to come, but that's not what happened. In fact, what happened was the exact opposite: nothing. After the album was released, a strange and sudden quiet fell over the group. The promotion seemed to dry up, and the duo, who had been such a powerful presence in music, started to fade from public view. There would be more music videos, interviews where they would discuss their creative process, and maybe even a world tour. At first, nobody thought too much of it. Fans figured they were just taking a well-deserved break after years of recording and performing. But the weeks turned into months, and the months turned into a year. There was no news of a new single. There were no announcements for a 5th album. They just stopped. The silence was confusing and deeply unsettling. It was like watching the star players of your favorite team walk off the field in the middle of a championship game without any explanation. When a story leaves a big question unanswered, people can't help but try to figure it out themselves. That's exactly what happened with Eric B. Rakim. They never gave a clear reason for why they broke up, and because of that, rumors started flying. For over 30 years, fans and music writers have tried to piece together what really happened using only bits and pieces, quiet whispers, and old interviews. Over time, these guesses turned into what people believed was the truth. The biggest rumor was that the separation was all about money. According to the most popular story, the problem started with the contract between them. Eric B. was the one handling the business side of things, and instead of signing Rakim to a record label, he allegedly signed him to his own company. If that was true, it would mean Rakim didn't have full control over his own career. Every dollar he made would first go through Eric B., who would then decide how much Rakim got. That kind of setup would create a big power imbalance and possibly a lot of resentment. Fans began to believe that Rakim felt trapped, that he was being underpaid while creating some of the greatest music in hip-hop history. It made sense, and that's why so many people believed it. It also helped explain why their split was so bitter and why lawyers eventually got involved. There was another rumor too, one about creative differences. Maybe as they got older, Rakim wanted to grow as an artist and take his lyrics in a new direction. Maybe Eric B. wanted to stick with what had already made them successful. That kind of tension is common when artists work together for a long time. But even this theory usually circled back to the money issue. If Rakim was stuck in a contract he didn't like, it wouldn't matter what kind of music he wanted to make. He didn't have the freedom to do it. That made the contract story feel even more real. And so for decades, one story became the one people believed. A brilliant young rapper caught in a bad deal, forced to walk away from one of the most legendary duos in hip-hop history. Whether it's true or not almost doesn't matter anymore. It's the version that stuck. After the split, Rakim and Eric B. took very different paths. Rakim jumped into a solo career, releasing albums like The 18th Letter in 1997 and The Master in 1999. His music kept his legend alive, earning him the nickname The God MC for his smooth flow and clever lyrics. He stayed true to hip-hop, dropping thoughtful verses that inspired new artists. Eric B., on the other hand, stepped back from the spotlight. He released a solo album in 1995, but it didn't make the same waves as their work together. Instead, he tried other things, like opening a restaurant and working on film projects. He even faced some legal trouble, like a 2019 arrest tied to an old 2001 case, which kept him in the news but not for music. The two barely spoke, and for fans it felt like a family that had drifted apart, with no explanation why. Then in 2016, something shifted. Eric B. took to Twitter to announce a reunion, saying he and Rakim were planning to work together again. Fans were thrilled, hoping this meant new music or at least some answers. In 2017, something special happened. Eric B., Rakim hit the stage together at the legendary Apollo Theater in New York. It was the 30th anniversary of Paid in Full, and the energy was electric. Just like old times, Eric B. spun the records while Rakim dropped flawless rhyme. The crowd went wild. It was like they'd never been apart. And they didn't stop there. In 2018, they hit the road for a full US tour, proving to everyone they could still light up a stage. That same year, they sat down with Rolling Stone and talked like old friends. They called each other family, brushed off any drama from the past, and even hinted at remastering their classic albums. It felt like a fresh start. Eric B. emphasized the familial nature of their relationship, saying they were like brothers who could go years without talking and still share a deep bond. Rather than diving into the specifics of the legal battle or contract disagreements, he framed the split as something natural that happens with time. He also reflected on the early days of their partnership. They met through a local promoter, and Rakim's older brother, Stevie Blas Griffin, played a key role in encouraging their collaboration. Eric B. credited his musical background. He played trumpet and guitar in high school, as shaping his sampling and production style, which blended seamlessly with Rakim's groundbreaking lyricism. Then in 2023, they reunited again, this time at the Stone Pony 4 Hip Hop's 50th anniversary. The love for them was still strong. But even with these big moments, they kept the past mostly under wraps. Fans were happy to see them, but they still had questions. Why did they even break up in the first place? Neither Eric B. nor Rakim ever gave a clear explanation about their split. Even though Rakim stayed active in music, dropping albums like The Seventh Seal in 2009, he almost never spoke about what happened between them. But in 2018, that changed. During an interview with Stretch and Bobbito on NPR, Rakim finally cracked the silence. Stretch and Bobbito, hip-hop icons in their own right, created a relaxed, honest space for the conversation. Their podcast, What's Good with Stretch and Bobbito, was all about digging deep. And Rakim's episode, which aired on August 29, 2018, delivered just that. They talked about everything: his music, his faith, and most importantly, what really happened with Eric B. In the NPR interview, Rakim revealed that the key issue stemmed from a business strategy Eric B. proposed toward the end of their time together. They were still under contract with MCA Records and owed the label 3 more albums. According to Rakim, Eric B.'s idea was to fast-track their exit. He would release a solo album, keeping the profits, and Rakim would do the same. Then they'd reunite to deliver one final collaborative album, completing their contractual obligations and setting the stage for a new, more lucrative deal.
He said if he do a solo joint, I'll do a solo joint. Then we got back together, did the last.
To Rakim, the plan made sense. It offered both financial independence and a clean slate for their next chapter. He signed off on Eric B's solo project without hesitation. But when it was Rakim's turn to go solo, Eric B refused to sign the necessary release papers. That refusal created a major rift.
Eric B did his, I signed off, and when it was time for me to do mine.
Rakim explained that Eric B's reluctance stemmed from fear. Specifically, the fear that Rakim might not return to finish their final joint album. Rakim, however, saw this as a betrayal. He had supported Eric B's solo move and expected the same in return.
Hope that if he would have signed for some reason that I wasn't going to sign back.
The disagreement spiraled into a legal battle that lasted for over 5 years, effectively ending their collaboration in 1992. Rakim later admitted that the experience left a bitter taste in his mouth, not just because of the business dispute, but because someone he considered a brother didn't trust him to honor his word. Despite the bitterness, Rakim's tone in the NPR interview was more reflective than resentful. He clarified that the split wasn't about personal hatred or a falling out in the traditional sense. They never had a physical altercation. Their bond wasn't severed by animosity, but by business complications and miscommunication. He also acknowledged that they were young when they rose to fame. Rakim was just 17 when they began working together, and that the pressures of success, contracts, and inexperience likely amplified their challenges. Rakim also spoke about how his worldview and personal philosophy helped him process the situation. He mentioned that his Islamic faith gave him perspective and humility during tough times, helping him let go of the bitterness and move forward. Although the legal conflict delayed his solo debut by several years, he eventually launched his solo career with the release of The 18th Letter in 1997, a project that was both a statement of independence and a reaffirmation of his lyrical legacy. Now that Rakim has laid his cards on the table, we can finally act as detectives. We can take his new testimony and hold it up against the 30 years of rumors to see what was fact and what was fiction. Looking at it this way, it becomes clear that while the fans may not have known the exact details, their guesses were pointed in the right direction all along. The biggest rumor, the one that persisted for decades, was that the breakup was about a bad contract and unfair business. Rakim's new account confirms that this was 100% the core of the issue. The whispers about Rakim being signed directly to Eric B weren't just rumors. They were the central fact that caused the entire partnership to crumble. This is a powerful lesson for anyone in business about the importance of having clear agreements where everyone feels respected and valued from day one. So, what about the other theories, like the one that they had creative differences? Based on what Rakim has said, this doesn't seem to be the main issue. Their problem wasn't a disagreement over the direction of the music. In fact, their creative chemistry was so strong that they made another classic album right at the end. The issue wasn't what was happening in the recording booth, it was what was happening in the business office. The business problems became so heavy that they eventually crushed the creative partnership. Of course, a story always has two sides. So, what has Eric B said? In an interview with Hip Hop DX, he backed up Rakim's explanation of their split. He made it clear that there was no bad blood between them and said they always split their money 50,050, even when he paid for studio costs out of his own pocket. Eric B also shared that naming the group Eric B Rakim was actually Rakim's idea, showing the mutual respect they had from the very beginning. His words made it clear that even though they went their separate ways professionally, their friendship and the legacy they built together remained strong. Rakim's painful confession about his partnership with Eric B. being destroyed by money and contracts is not an isolated incident. In fact, it's a tragically familiar story in hip-hop. To understand just how common this issue is, we only need to look at the explosive breakup of arguably the most revolutionary group in rap history, NWA, which happened for strikingly similar reasons. Just like Eric B., Rakim, NWA changed the game. With their groundbreaking album Straight Outta Compton, they became the world's most dangerous group and brought the reality of street life to the entire world. They were a cultural force. But behind the scenes, a power structure was in place that mirrored the one Rakim described. The group's label, Ruthless Records, was co-owned by member Eazy-E and their manager, Jerry Heller. The primary lyricist, the group's writing engine, was Ice Cube. The conflict began when Ice Cube, the pen behind many of NWA's and Eazy-E's biggest hits, started to feel that he was not being paid what he was worth. He saw the group blowing up, selling millions of records, selling out arenas, and appearing all over the news. But when he looked at his own paycheck, the numbers didn't seem to match the group's massive success. The breaking point arrived in the form of a contract. Ice Cube was presented with a long-term deal to sign with Ruthless Records. He felt the contract was unfair and heavily favored the label owners, Eazy-E and Jerry Heller. It was a moment of truth, almost identical to the one Rakim would face a few years later. Just as Rakim felt he was in a deal structured to benefit Eric B. more than him, Ice Cube felt he was being asked to lock himself into a deal designed to make Eazy-E and Jerry Heller rich while he did the creative heavy lifting. When Ice Cube raised his concerns about the money and the contract, he felt he was dismissed. Faced with the choice of signing an unfair deal or walking away, he chose to bet on himself. In 1989, at the absolute height of NWA's fame, Ice Cube left the group. The parallels are impossible to ignore. Two legendary groups, both at the peak of their powers, were torn apart from the inside. The story didn't even end with Ice Cube. A couple of years later, the group's main producer, Dr. Dre, also left Ruthless Records, citing the exact same financial reasons. The NWA saga is a powerful and famous echo of Rakim's confession. It serves as proof that this isn't just one sad story, but a classic, painful pattern in music history where the magic created in the studio is tragically undone by the business conducted in the office.